Welcome to Faith in Recovery with Anthony Acampora.
Welcome to Banyan's Faith in Recovery program. My name is Anthony Acampora. I'm your host. Thank you for joining us. Faith in Recovery radio show focuses on advice and insight for families of those in addiction and dealing with mental health issues, powerful personal testimonies, guests who are expert in their field. I'm also the director and chaplain at Banyan Treatment Center's Faith in Recovery Substance Abuse Treatment Center. We are in Pompano Beach. It's a non-denominational Christ-centered program. The program is designed to allow clients to establish or restore their faith and relationship with God while dealing with their addiction. All that's required for this program is someone who is seeking to establish that relationship with God. So we meet people right where they're at on their journey. They don't have to be Bible scholars to come in this program. A lot of our clients never even read the Bible, or some of them never even been to church, which is fine. Like I said, we meet them right where they're at on their spiritual journey. So I want to introduce a really special guest on here today. He's a great guy. I've become friends with him. I've had him speak numerous times at Banyan's Faith and Recovery program. I also had him speak at our Banyan Unity Luncheon that we have annually, and he was just a powerful speaker. Jonathan Nowlan is a certified Les Brown speaker, coach, and trainer. Jonathan is responsible for training sales teams for various car dealerships across the state of Florida, and is a top ambassador and leader of sales for the Les Brown Institute. Wow, that's something else. Jonathan is highly sought after speaker and trainer, conducting presentations on life skills, motivation, and living your best life, coaching others to achieve their maximum potential and performance in life. Jonathan speaks from a place of experience. After a near-death encounter, Jonathan went from depending on a 24-hour nursing care to learn how to live, learning how to walk again, and gaining his independence. Jonathan today is grateful to have the ability to dress himself, drive, and use his voice to inspire others. Wow, amen, that's awesome. Welcome to the Faith and Recovery program, Jonathan Nowlan.
Well, thank you very much, Anthony, and thank you for having me on today. And it really sounds good to hear some of the things that I've been able to accomplish, given my past and given the things that have taken place in my life.
It sounds great when somebody else is saying them too, right?
Yeah, it really does.
You have some people out there that they're the ones that are saying it about themselves. So anyway, John, thanks so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Such a blessing to have you. Every time you speak at Banyan, at whatever, if it's a luncheon or if it's to our clients, I usually watch, especially with the clients, I watch them, their reaction. And usually I'm watching them because they're doing something wrong, so I'm making sure they're not getting involved with something. but I watch the reaction, and I tell you, they're almost like on the edge of their seats when you're speaking. It's just so powerful. It's so inspiring. And every time you leave, it's usually 2 or 3 days, people are still talking about it. And that's how impactful it was. So I just wanted to let you know that you're such a blessing to our clients, and it's so encouraging. I mean, people are in a dark place. This is a treatment center. They're dealing with mental health issues. Some of them are just completely broken in spirit, and you really lift their spirit. So I want to thank you so much. Jonathan, tell us a little bit about your incredible journey.
Well, I'll tell you this, where I'm at in my life today, I love it. But there was a time in my life that I was involved in drugs. My upbringing, I got into selling drugs and using drugs and abusing them and alcohol, to a point where literally I was at a point in my life, I was in a wheelchair, and I was on my deathbed. And, it came to a point where I begged God for another chance, and I got a blessing, and I was able to go through a treatment center, and I was able to start cleaning up, but also learn quite a bit on how I became the way I did positive to get to where I'm at today.
Amen. I've noticed, especially in the recovery field and also with mental health, when you've gone through it and you could pull from those painful experiences, they could spot it a mile away if it's not the real deal. And going through all of the pain, I mean, you had the addiction and all of that, which they relate to, but also everything else you've overcome. So I think that's why it's so powerful, and just the way you speak and the way you present is just amazing. So but when we look back at it, the pain, the suffering, everything that we went through, it doesn't make any sense when we're going through it. A lot of times we blame God for it, but then when we go through it, we overcome things and we look back and it's like, I get it. That's why. That makes sense now. I see what you're doing, God. Now you're going to use this. You're going to use all that pain and all that suffering to impact a lot more people than just one. That's what I see when you're talking. That's what I hear when I watch you. What do you think about that as far as the impact that you have?
Absolutely, and this is some of the things like God, the biblical Bible. It gives us the information. It shares with us on what we're doing. And so when I was in a dark place, and I say, why is this happening? Why is this happening? I had no idea that I was actually the author of what was happening. It wasn't so much that stuff was thrown at me by an accident. I was authoring the stuff, and it was by what I was consuming. What was I consuming? The people I was around, the things I was putting in my body, the things I was putting in my mind that bring me to that spot of homeless, hopeless, and helpless in a wheelchair. And I was the author of that. And I share this. I mean, I've shared my story with you many times on what's taken place, of how I've created the world that I live in.
Yes.
I've created that by what I put in my body and who I surround myself around and what I continue to invest my time in.
Absolutely. So, John, tell us, just rewind a little bit about what happens. You were involved with drugs and things and active addiction. What happened, the accident, and then, when you woke up and out of the coma and things, how did you get to the point where you're like, I'm going to use this, I'm going to do something? How did you overcome? It must have been completely devastating. And for our listeners out there that are going through stuff out there, it may not be something as tragic as this, and breaking your neck in an accident in a wheelchair, but it could be some other type of suffering. What do you think there?
So I was not always an upstanding citizen. So I was drinking, I was doing drugs. And it was 4 years ago that I was on 95, the interstate, and I was driving, and I was intoxicated, and I came off of an exit, and I didn't turn completely. And I went over a huge banking, and I was ejected out of the sunroof of the car, where in that time I broke my neck, I ripped my ear off, I broke my neck, my back, my clavicle, my ribs, and then I landed in a pond, and I drowned. And at that time, I was in a coma for 2 months. They froze my body for 17 days so they could test this robot on me. And you know as well as me that it was horrific. You've seen the pictures with tubes and braces around my body on this table that rotated. Yep. It was a very intense experience. And I share this with you, that during that time, while I was in my coma, I want to share with you this part. When I was in my coma, I remember my dreams. And in my dreams, I was a multi-millionaire. I was flying from China to here. I had this beautiful wife. And in real life, when I was a little boy, my grandpa, I called him Papa. He'd take me fishing every weekend. Well, he died 15 years ago, and we dumped his ashes in the ocean because he was a fisherman. My grandpa was in my coma. He was the biggest fish in the whole world. Everybody wanted to catch him. And I could swim with him. Well, I was up in the clouds. I was with my grandpa, and I was with God. And we were looking down at me on the operating table, and I had tubes in my mouth, in my throat, in my chest. And at that moment, they were telling my family to go home. I was dead by Monday. And when I realized I was looking down at me dead, I hit my knees and I grabbed God and I begged him. I said, Lord, just give me one more chance at life. I won't do what I've done and I won't be who I was. Just give me one more chance. And at that very second, I woke up out of my coma.
Amazing, man. Amazing, John. Every time you tell that story, I've heard it before, with the clients, and it just grips you, man. It just kind of grabs you, and it's just, you can kind of feel like what you were going through almost. It's just incredible. John, tell us a little bit about the transition and what you've had to overcome and deal with the situation that you have, and how are you able to get motivated and motivate yourself and inspire yourself, and now inspiring so many others?
Absolutely, and this is what took place. When I woke up, just so you know, they came to me with a verdict that you're paralyzed from the nipple line down. They told me I'd probably never talk again. I had a tracheotomy. And at that time, one of the most important things that we all have, God is definitely there, but one of the other most important things is our imagination. And our imagination is so important. Einstein says imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. And so I looked at it, and my imagination wasn't in the greatest place at that time, but when I started to consume positive things, when I shut off the television, and I started reading books, and I shut off the negative people, the naysayers, and I started seeking people with goals and dreams and ambition, and I shut off the negative music that I would listen to, and I listened to motivational tapes. My imagination went from me not being able to do something or me not deserving something to I can achieve this. I can do this. And when we start to change our input, we can really start to see these things. MIT did a study, and it said every negative you can't or no that goes into your body, somebody telling you no, every negative no, it takes 16 positive affirmations to override that. And so I tell you, it's really important that we control our input. It's like if we don't program ourselves, life will program us.
Yes, well said. Well said. John, we're going to need to take a quick break. We're going to be back in 30 seconds. Faith and Recovery radio program. We'll be right back.
If you or a loved one are struggling with drug and alcohol problems or mental health disorders, call Banyan Treatment Center at 888-270-5712. Visit our website, faithandrecovery.com. We have a compassionate and understanding staff that were once in your shoes, and our clinical team is highly skilled to handle all types of addictions. If you need help, don't wait. Call 888-270-5712 or visit our website, faithandrecovery.com.
Welcome back to Banyan's Faith and Recovery radio show. My name is Anthony Acampora, your host. If you have any questions that you'd like us to answer on air, or if you have any suggestions or feedback about the program, what do you like? What do you not like? What do you think we should do? What type of guests would you like us to have on? Feel free to connect with us on Facebook, Faith and Recovery, Banyan's Christian program, Faith and Recovery. And send us a message. Send us a private message on there, and we will respond. I want to get back to our conversation with Jonathan Nowlan. He's a motivational speaker. His story is incredible. He's had tremendous adversity that he's been able to overcome. Jonathan, let me ask you, what suggestions do you have for people listening right now that may be completely broken in spirit, completely devastated, and what are some of the stumbling blocks, when you are coming out of a tragic situation and suffering?
Yes, well, I'd say if you're right now sitting in your seat, or you're somewhere in life that you're completely broken and you're down and you're out, I send this from my heart. The thing that I want you to really grab a hold of and know that right now you're where you're at because of your thinking, which is a great benefit because you can change it. You have this. If you've seen somebody do something you want, that means it's possible for you. It is truly possible for you. And some of these stumbling blocks that you'll run into, if you're in an environment, I was in an environment where everybody around me did drugs. I was in an environment where everybody complained and they didn't want to do anything about their circumstances or the situations. I was in that environment. And I made a decision that I no longer wanted to be like this. And I was able to get out of that, whether it's going into a treatment, whether it's taking yourself and putting yourself into a program, whatever it may be, to get away from it is the start. It's a start. And again, if you're down in where you're at right now, know that you can change this. Yes. You can change this. It's reaching out for help, Anthony.
That's great. That's great, John.
Definitely.
Thank you. That's awesome. You know, I'm sure there's people out there listening that maybe they've gotten self-help tapes and they went to seminars and they're trying all these different things and nothing seems to work, whatever area they're struggling in life. So what suggestions would you like to give anyone out there? Maybe they're just kind of running into a brick wall with every turn they take, whether it's addiction or whether it's something that they're trying to eliminate in their life and they're not succeeding. What do you think? Like, what advice could you give on that could inspire someone?
A big thing is habits, right? Where we're at in our life, we have several habits, and if you're doing these tapes and you're creating this, it's the MIT study, as I mentioned with that, the negative input. That means we have to do this constantly, nonstop. Continue to pour this. You know, a big thing is that where we're at is not just solely because of us. Other people pour stuff into us. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest things that's changed my life was changing my environment. So you hang around 9 broke people, you're going to be the 10th broke person. You hang around 9 people using drugs, you're going to use drugs. Yes. I said to myself, I want to be a millionaire, so I got to hang around millionaires. Well, I didn't know how. But I started reading. I started writing down my goals. I started creating habits to where first thing in the morning, I write down my goals. Last thing before I retire at night, I write down these goals, and I write them as if I've achieved them. And now I have a direction of where I want to go in life. And even if you're down and out, your goals could be, I want to get sober. I want to find peace in my life. I want to get a new crowd to hang around. You start writing these down. God created the universe. God created this magnificent law that whatever you're seeking, you seek it bad enough, you will obtain these things. But the thing that is running around in this world, and a majority of people, is that they're not seeking, they're accepting life as it is. This is the way it is, and they're accepting it. And if you don't act on life, life acts on you. And so I share with you, you got to make a decision to go after the things you want. You got to get up and say, I'm done with this. You throw away the drugs, throw away the alcohol. I'm done. And make a stand for who you are. You can do it, and you have greatness in you.
Amen. Beautiful. Well said, John. Thanks. You know, you mentioned about who we're surrounded with. And my father used to always say, tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. And growing up as a kid, and you're involved with all kinds of stuff, you don't relate really. You think they don't understand. I never listened. But I used to be surrounded by the wrong people. And you know, I wrote a devotional book, and one of the chapters is that. Tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are. And I have a Bible verse in there from Corinthians, and it says, bad company corrupts good character. And it's so true, especially how it applies to addiction and recovery. We see it over and over again. People do phenomenal in the program at Banyan. They do well in the regular programming. They do well in the faith-based programming. And when you go back to those same people and those same places that you were hanging out with, it's too much of a draw and it pulls you right back in. So it's just so important. I always say not just identify and eliminate those people, places, and things, but you have to replace them. Like what you were saying. You know, if you don't replace them, you're going to start to miss that. You're going to get bored. You don't want to be isolated, especially when you're coming out of addiction or any mental health issues. That's the worst thing you could do. So you have to start going to different things. I go to Celebrate Recovery on Friday instead of happy hour. I go to church at Calvary Chapel instead of sitting in a casino for 12 hours, drinking and losing thousands of dollars. So I replaced those things that I was doing, and the people change as well. So, John, could you talk about that a little bit as far as how you were able to connect? And we'll talk a little bit about Les Brown and the Institute and what you're doing. If you want to share about that, like, tell people about how they could connect with you or how you got involved with that. Maybe somebody's interested in doing that and they were like, I want to be a motivational speaker. I think I could help people. Share about that, John.
You know, absolutely, and that is it, right? I love what you're sharing there. Show me your four closest friends, I'll show you who you are. And as a kid, like, we don't really have that choice. We want to fit in. But as now, you do have that choice. And when I started to do these things and I started to make these changes, you never just give up a habit. Like you mentioned, you replace a habit. They did studies on this. Habit is cue, routine, reward. You know, you have a cue, a routine, a reward, and you replace those. And when I started to replace my habits from television and started reading books and the negative people, looking for people that had ambition, and the music and motivational tapes, what took place for me is I was sharing in AA meetings. And when I shared, I moved people when I shared. And I felt that in me. I said, wow, this is good. I said, I want to be a speaker. I started seeking out people that were speakers. I looked up Les Brown, one of the top motivational speakers in the world. And it's a funny story, is I would look him up on the internet every day. I'd look it up, and there was a phone number, and I'd call it. And I'd say, hey, let me talk to Les Brown. And they were like, who are you? I'm like, this is Jonathan Nowlan. You don't know who I am. And then they say, well, what do you want? I said, I got a story to tell. And they tell me, well, 200 people call here a day wanting to talk. I said, leave a message. And I did this every day. And I would send them emails and emails. Well, I got a thing on my phone. How would you like to work with Les? And I filled it out. And it wasn't a week later that I got a phone call, and Les Brown says, you're a lot easier to get a hold of than the president. I said, you're a lot harder to get a hold of than the president. And so it's going after it, like really find out what you're passionate about. And I'll share with you, if you're not sure what you're passionate about, I'm going to give you an exercise that I give to some of my clients. Is you take a piece of paper and write down 30 things you would do if you had an unlimited amount of money. You'll get to about 10 or 12, and you have everything you want. And then in the next 18, you have to start thinking and using your imagination. And when you start using that muscle, you'll get 30 things, and you start identifying some of the things, and they have the relatedness. You'll find out majority of people are passionate about helping other people.
Yes.
So it's finding out what you're passionate about and what way it's helping other people and go after that.
Absolutely. I mean, the saying is, you find out what you love to do, you know, you'll never work another day in your life, and because it's not work anymore. You love it. You love going in there. You love helping people. You know, I had to go through a lot of suffering to get to the point where I even wanted to help people. You start to develop a compassion with people that are suffering, especially if it's something similar that you went through. And that's how I got into this field. Otherwise, I would have still been a director of security somewhere in the country. So, yeah, it was a lot more money, and it was a title and a huge budget and stock options. But there was nothing, it couldn't even compare to the fulfillment that you have when you're making a difference in people's lives and watching them change and watching God transform people from the inside out. It's absolutely incredible. I wouldn't trade it in for anything. So,
And
yeah, go ahead, John.
what I say is, you know, and this is the truth, is when you help other people, what you're really doing is helping yourself.
Yeah.
You're helping yourself. You know, the greatest gift is to be able to contribute to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
That is the greatest gift you can receive, you know. And if we look at biblical and we look at one of our greatest teachers, the one greatest teacher, you know, he what did he do? He was a giver. He gave, he gave knowledge, he gave healing, he gave everything. You know, Jesus did so much that, and what did it do? He gave. He was a giver. And when you give, you truly heal. You get rewarded.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That well said. You know, Jesus said, what you do to the least of mine, you're doing to me. You know, so I try to think of that all the time, and just, you know, whatever we're doing to someone, if it's negative and we're hurting people, you're doing it to him. If you're helping people, you're encouraging people, you're doing it to him. So it changes the whole perspective of things. John, we're going to need to close. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. Anybody out there that's looking for someone to inspire someone, a motivational speaker, this is your guy, man. I'm telling you, he is absolutely incredible. So if you or someone you know is in need of treatment for substance abuse, take the leap of faith. BanyanTreatmentCenter.com or FaithInRecovery.com, or you can reach us at 888-270-5712, 888-270-5712. John, thank you so much again for being on. This was powerful, and we'll definitely have you back out there. And any closing, we have about 10 seconds, John.
Yes, go ahead and look me up, thepossibitiesinYou.com. Come follow me. I'm here. If you ever want, my number's on there. You can call me.
Amen. Thank you, John. God bless you, and God bless everyone out there and your families. Thank you.